The Chateau Petrus 1982 weighed exactly nothing in my hands, but the responsibility of carrying a $4,000 bottle of wine across polished marble floors felt like holding a newborn made of mortgage payments. I was 3 steps from table 7 when I saw it. Most people wouldn't have noticed. The maitre d' hadn't. The sommelier who decanted it certainly hadn't. But I'd spent 2 years as a pharmacy tech before my mother's medical bills forced me to drop out, and I knew what sediment looked like versus what didn't belong. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. The wine had an opalescent sheen, barely visible. Just a faint turbidity catching the light from the crystal chandelier overhead like oil dispersed in water, creating microscopic interference patterns that shouldn't exist in a 40-year-old Bordeaux. My hands steadied even as my heart rate spiked. Table 7. Solo diner. Nikolai Volkov, according to the reservation, though I suspected that wasn't his real name. He'd been coming to La Mer Rouge every Thursday for 6 weeks, always alone, always ordering the most expensive bottle on our list, always leaving a 50% tip in cash. He was probably 45, with salt and pepper hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from Siberian granite and polished by expensive barbers. His suit was bespoke. I'd waited on enough hedge fund managers to recognize Brioni tailoring, but his eyes were different from the usual clientele. They didn't glaze over service staff. They cataloged us. Tonight, those steel gray eyes were focused on his phone, his thumb scrolling with the casual attention of someone reading news, not trading stocks. I approached the table. My pulse hammered against my throat. Mi peti eta, otravlena. The words came out in Russian before I'd consciously decided to speak. Don't drink that. It's poisoned. His thumb stopped mid-scroll. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The restaurant continued its orchestrated symphony around us. The quiet murmur of Manhattan's elite, the delicate clink of silverware against bone china. A woman's laugh like wind chimes 3 tables over. Then Nikolai Volkov's eyes lifted to mine. I'd expected anger, confusion, maybe amusement at what he'd assume was a prank. Instead, I saw recognition. Sharp, immediate, dangerous. His hand moved faster than I could track. Suddenly his fingers were wrapped around my wrist, not painfully, but with the absolute certainty of someone who knew exactly how much pressure to apply to prevent escape without leaving marks. Gdzie ty nauczyłaś ruskiemu? Where did you learn Russian? His accent was pure Moscow, refined by years of international business but unmistakable in its origins. My parents, I started in English. Po-ruski, in Russian. My parents emigrated from St. Petersburg when I was 5. The words tumbled out in the language I'd spoken at home my entire childhood, the one my mother still insisted on during our weekly phone calls. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to the wine, sir. It's contaminated. There's something suspended in it that shouldn't be there. Microencapsulation, possibly cyclodextrin carriers designed to, "You're coming with me." He stood in one fluid motion, his grip on my wrist, shifting to something that looked almost gentlemanly to outside observers, a man helping a woman to her feet. Now, I'm working. I can't. Katerina. He'd read my name tag, but hearing him say it in Russian, the full version, not the Kate I used professionally, sent ice down my spine. Someone just tried to kill me with a bottle of wine you're holding. Either you're part of the attempt, or you just saved my life. Either way, you're not safe here for the next 30 seconds. He was already moving, pulling me with him toward the kitchen entrance instead of the main doors. My manager will be significantly less concerned about your employment than your survival. We pushed through the swinging doors into the controlled chaos of La Mer Rouge's kitchen. Chef Bernard looked up from his station, his expression shifting from irritation to calculation as he recognized Volkov. Monsieur, les clients ne sont pas. Чрезвычайная ситуация. Emergency. Volkov's Russian cut through the French like a blade. He switched to English. The wine at table 7 is contaminated. No one touches it. Call poison control, then call the police. Tell them the bottle may contain tetrodotoxin or aconite. Move. Now. The authority in his voice made even Chef Bernard, who once made a city councilman cry, step back. We were through the kitchen, past the prep stations, through the service entrance into the alley behind the restaurant before I could fully process what was happening. A black Mercedes S-Class materialized from the darkness, pulling up with the precision of a vehicle that had been waiting. The back door opened. Get in. I can't just... My pharmacy tech training warred with my survival instincts. Sir, if that wine is poisoned, we need to preserve it as evidence. The police will need to test it, and I should give a statement about what I observed. The opalescent sheen suggests lipophilic compounds suspended in Katerina. His voice softened fractionally. Do you know what happens to witnesses who prevent assassinations? The question landed like a physical blow. They become loose ends, I whispered. They become loose ends, he confirmed. And whoever poisoned that wine is watching this restaurant right now, trying to determine if their attempt succeeded. The moment they realize I'm alive, and you're the reason, you become a liability they'll eliminate. Behind us, I heard raised voices from inside the kitchen. Through the service entrance window, I could see someone gesturing toward table 7. Volkov's hand was still on my wrist. Not forcing, not yet. But the Mercedes engine purred like a panther, and his eyes held a question that was really an ultimatum. I have student loans, I said stupidly. And my mother, she's in a nursing facility in Brighton Beach, the memory care unit. I can't just disappear, I have to. Your mother's name? What? Her name. Elena Voloshina. But why? He pulled out his phone, typed something one-handed, sent it. She'll have 24-hour private care starting within the hour. Fully funded, non-negotiable. My mind reeled. You can't just, I can. I am. He gestured to the Mercedes. Your mother is safe. You are not. Choose. Through the kitchen window, I saw a man in a suit I didn't recognize enter from the dining room. He was speaking to Chef Bernard, gesturing toward the service entrance, toward us. Volkov saw my gaze. That's not police. Police don't arrive in 45 seconds. That's cleanup. The man's eyes found the exit door, found us through the window. His hand moved inside his jacket. Volkov shoved me into the Mercedes and slid in behind me. Drive. Sechas. The car was moving before my door fully closed, throwing me against leather seats that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Through the rear window, I watched the man burst into the alley, his hand emerging with something dark and metallic. Get down. Volkov pushed my head below the window line with one hand while pulling out his own phone with the other. He spoke rapid-fire Russian into it, too fast for me to follow completely, but I caught words. Protection detail, Brighton Beach, immediate extraction, pharmacy tech, speaks Russian. We turned sharply onto Park Avenue, merging into late evening traffic. Manhattan's lights blurred past the tinted windows. I need you to look at me, Volkov said. I raised my head slowly. He'd moved to the far seat, putting space between us, a gesture of respect that somehow made this entire insane situation slightly less terrifying. My name is Nikolai Volkov. That much was true. I own import-export businesses throughout Eastern Europe and the United States. Some of them are entirely legitimate. His slight smile suggested most of them weren't. I've been attempting to restructure certain partnerships, leave behind operations that have become, shall we say, morally complicated. You're trying to go legitimate. I'm trying not to die like a gangster in a bad film. He leaned back, and for the first time, I saw the exhaustion under his composure. Apparently, my former business associates disagree with my retirement plan. The poison, it looked like microencapsulation, cyclodextrin carriers in high-proof alcohol solutions. They'd dissolve slowly, releasing the toxin gradually. You would have seemed drunk first, then sick. By the time you reached a hospital, I'd be dead, and it would look like a heart attack or stroke. He studied me with new intensity. How did you recognize it? I was studying to be a pharmacist. Before, I stopped. He didn't need my sob story. Before your mother's dementia required 24-hour care that insurance doesn't cover. It wasn't a question. I had someone pull your background the moment you spoke Russian. Katerina Voloshina, 26, dropped out of Columbia Pharmacy School 18 months ago, when your mother's condition deteriorated. You've been working 3 jobs to cover the nursing facility bills. No criminal record, no debts besides student loans and medical expenses. No connections to any organizations that would want me dead. The casual invasion of privacy should have made me angry. Instead, I just felt tired. Are you telling me I'm not a suspect? Or that you've just confirmed I'm disposable? His laugh was unexpected, genuine, almost warm. I'm telling you that you saved my life, and I don't take that lightly. The question now is what we do next. We? You've seen too much, Katerina. You know, about the poison. You've identified the delivery method, and you can testify to the fact that someone with access to Le Mer Rouge's wine cellar attempted to murder me." He paused. "More importantly, you speak Russian fluently and understand pharmaceutical chemistry. Those two skills make you uniquely valuable." "Valuable how?" "The people trying to kill me are Bratva Russian organized crime. They communicate in codes even their own people struggle to follow. They're using novel drug compounds to eliminate targets without leaving obvious evidence." He leaned forward. "I need someone who can understand both their language and their methods. Someone they won't see coming because you're just a waitress from Brighton Beach. You want me to spy for you. I want you to survive. The spying would be incidental." The Mercedes turned onto the FDR Drive, heading downtown. Through the window, the East River glittered with reflected city lights. "And if I refuse? Then I'll put you in protective custody at a secure location until this situation resolves. Your mother will continue receiving care. You'll be compensated for your lost wages. But you'll be a prisoner in a gilded cage until I've eliminated the threat or they've eliminated me." His eyes held mine. "Heh. Is that what you want?" "What I want," I said carefully, "is to not be having this conversation. I want to finish my shift, take the subway home to my studio apartment, and call my mother before she falls asleep. I want my biggest problem to be whether I can pick up an extra shift this weekend. That life ended the moment you spoke Russian. He was right. I knew he was right. If I agree to help," I said slowly, "I need guarantees. My mother stays safe. I want that in writing, with provisions for her care regardless of what happens to either of us. I want done." I wasn't finished. That slight smile again. "My apologies. Continue. I want to know exactly what I'm getting into. No surprises. No omissions. If I'm risking my life, I deserve to know why and for what. Reasonable. And I want out the moment this is over. Clean break. New identity if necessary. Enough money to finish pharmacy school somewhere far from here. No strings, no obligations. No lifetime of looking over your shoulder wondering if I'll call in the debt." He nodded. "Also reasonable. Anything else?" I thought about it. About the weight of that wine bottle in my hands. The opalescent sheen that had triggered 2 years of pharmaceutical training I'd thought was wasted. About my mother in her memory care unit, forgetting my name some days but never forgetting Russian lullabies. About the fact that I'd been invisible my entire life, just another immigrant daughter working herself to death for a dream that kept receding further out of reach. "I want to matter," I said quietly. "Even if it's just this once. Even if it's temporary. I want what I know and what I can do to actually mean something." Nikolai Volkov extended his hand. "Then we have an agreement, Katerina Voloshina. Welcome to a world where you matter very much, possibly too much." I shook his hand. The Mercedes carried us into the night, and behind us, everything I'd been evaporated like wine spilled on hot pavement. Ahead lay something I couldn't name yet. But for the first time in 18 months, I felt like I was moving forward instead of drowning in place. The Mercedes took us to a building I'd passed 1,000 times without really seeing, one of those anonymous glass towers in the financial district that looked like every other corporate monument to wealth. But where other buildings had lobby directories listing law firms and hedge funds, this one's entrance was unmarked except for a discreet bronze 47 beside the door. Nikolai used a keycard that made the lock click open with Germanic efficiency. No doorman, no security desk, just a private elevator with a biometric scanner. Penthouse? I guessed. All 12 floors. He pressed his thumb to the scanner. I prefer vertical integration. The elevator was mirror-polished steel that reflected us back in fractured angles. Him composed and alert despite nearly being poisoned 40 minutes ago. Me still wearing my waitress uniform with the wine stain on my sleeve, from where I'd clutched the Petrus bottle too tightly. "Your mother," Nikolai said as we ascended. "The memory care facility will receive a call from a doctor, Samantha Chen, within the next 10 minutes. She's a legitimate neurologist. Very expensive. Very discreet. She'll say she's conducting a research study on dementia care and your mother has been selected. Full medical coverage, private room, experimental treatments. Experimental treatments? All FDA approved. I'm not experimenting on your mother, Katerina. I'm ensuring she gets the best care available while you're unavailable to advocate for her." He checked his watch. "You should call the facility yourself. Confirm she's safe. They'll tell you about doctor." Chen's program. I pulled out my phone, a cracked iPhone 8 I'd been nursing for 3 years. My hands shook slightly as I dialed Brighton Beach Memory Care. Good evening, this is Stacy. Hi, this is Kate Voloshina. I'm calling about my mother, Elena. Oh, Miss Voloshina, I was just about to call you. We've had the most wonderful development. A Dr. Chen contacted us about a new care program, and your mother's been accepted. She'll be moving to a private suite tomorrow, with full-time nursing staff, and is my mother okay? Right now? Is she safe? A pause. Of course she's safe. She's in her room watching Irony of Fate. You know how she loves that film. Would you like me to transfer you? The elevator opened directly into an apartment that looked like it had been designed by someone who appreciated efficiency over ostentation. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the southern tip of Manhattan. Minimalist furniture in steel and leather. A kitchen that was clearly more functional than decorative. And everywhere security measures that most people wouldn't notice but I couldn't unsee. Cameras in the crown molding, reinforced door frames, windows that were certainly bulletproof. Even the abstract art on the walls, I'd bet money they concealed safe rooms or weapons caches. Yes, I told Stacy. Transfer me, please. Nikolai gestured to the kitchen. There's tea. Help yourself. Take your time. He disappeared into another room, giving me privacy I desperately needed. My mother answered on the third ring. Katyusha? Her voice was stronger than it had been in weeks. They're moving me to a bigger room tomorrow. With a window. Can you believe it? A window that opens. Mama, that's wonderful. I blinked back tears I hadn't known were coming. How are you feeling? Tired, Dorogaya. Always tired. But the doctor who came today, Dr. Chen, she was very kind. She spoke a little Russian. She said there are new treatments. New hope. A pause. Is this because of you? Did you do something? Yes, Mama. I accidentally saved a Russian gangster's life and now I'm in his penthouse about to become an accessory to God knows what. I got a better job, I said instead. With better benefits. They cover family care. Slava Bogu. Thank God. You work too hard, my Pichka. Too many jobs, not enough sleep. This is good. This is very good. We talked for 10 more minutes, her telling me about the activities director who'd started a Russian literature discussion group. Me making non-committal sounds while staring at Manhattan's glittering skyline and wondering what I'd actually agreed to. When I finally ended the call, I found Nikolai in what appeared to be a study, though command center might have been more accurate. 3 monitors displayed various security feeds. A 4th showed what looked like shipping manifests in Cyrillic. She's settled? He asked without turning. Yes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He closed the laptop displaying the manifests. You saved my life. I'm ensuring your mother receives care she should have had all along. These things balance. What comes next is where we determine if you're truly willing to help or if you'd prefer the gilded cage. I sat in the chair across from his desk, expensive leather that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Tell me what comes next. Nikolai steepled his fingers, studying me with those steel-gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything. 20 years ago, I came to America with $500 and connections to people who could help me become wealthy through methods that weren't strictly legal. Import-export, as I said. Some of it was luxury goods with questionable tariff declarations. Some of it was worse. How much worse? Not drugs. Never drugs. I have some principles. His slight smile was bitter. But gray market pharmaceuticals, untaxed luxury goods, facilitation services for people who needed to move money discreetly. I built an organization that connected Eastern European suppliers with American buyers. I became very good at it. Very wealthy. He stood, walking to the windows. The city stretched below us like a circuit board of light and shadow. 3 years ago, my younger brother Alexei died. Overdose. Fentanyl-laced heroin he bought from a dealer supplied by the same Bratva network I'd been facilitating for years. His voice remained steady, but I heard the razor edge beneath it. I didn't sell drugs, but the people I helped, they did. The money I moved? It funded operations that killed my brother. That's when you decided to go legitimate. That's when I decided I was done being the infrastructure for other people's sins. He turned back to me. But leaving isn't simple. I know too much. I control too many connections. The Bratva families I worked with see my retirement as betrayal. If I'm not helping them, I'm a liability who might help their competitors, or the FBI. And the wine tonight was The third attempt in 6 months. The first was a car bomb that killed my driver. The second was a prostitute with a knife who came very close before my security intervened. His expression hardened. They're escalating, getting creative. Tonight's poison was sophisticated pharmaceutical grade, designed to mimic natural death. That requires someone with medical knowledge. The pieces click together in my mind. You think they have a chemist. Someone creating novel compounds that won't show up in standard toxicology screens. I know they do. His name is Dr. Yuri Demidov. He did his doctorate at Moscow State University in medicinal chemistry before the FSB recruited him. Now he works freelance for Bratva families who pay well for untraceable methods. Nikolai pulled up a file on one of the monitors. A gray-haired man with sad eyes, and the stooped posture of someone who spent too much time at lab benches. He's been in New York for 3 months. My intelligence suggests he's being housed and protected by the Zakharov family. The family that wants you dead. One of them. I've made several enemies. He zoomed in on another photo, this one showing Dr. Demidov entering a building in Brighton Beach. But the Zakharovs are the most motivated. I used to handle their pharmaceutical imports. Gray market medications from Eastern Europe, sold to clinics that don't ask questions. When I withdrew my services, I cost them approximately $40 million annually. I absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man who'd just ensured my mother's care with someone who'd facilitated illegal pharmaceutical trafficking. You want me to what? Infiltrate Demidov's operation? Get close to him somehow? I want you to understand him. Nikolai pulled up more files, chemical formulas I recognized from my pharmaceutical coursework. Synthesis pathways for compounds I'd studied in toxicology. He's brilliant, paranoid, lonely. He lives above a Russian bookstore in Brighton Beach, shops at the same 3 stores, eats at the same 2 restaurants, never speaks to anyone except when necessary, never stays anywhere long enough to form connections. Except on Tuesday evenings, when he attends a Russian literature discussion group at Brighton Beach Memory Care. The words landed like a physical blow. You can't be serious. Your mother mentioned it, yes? The activities director who started the group? Nikolai's expression was carefully neutral. That's how I knew about Dr. Chen's research program. I've had people monitoring anyone with connections to Demidov. The literature group was a coincidence I'm now prepared to exploit. You want me to befriend a man who makes poison for the mafia. I want you to talk to him about Pushkin and Tolstoy in Russian while I determine what he's planning next and who he's working with. Nikolai sat back down. You're visiting your mother anyway. The literature group meets in the common room. You love Russian literature, I saw. Your Goodreads account, Katerina, Bulgakov, Dostoevsky, Akhmatova. This isn't a stretch. It's Tuesday evening with your mother at a discussion of books you actually read, while spying on a chemist who tried to kill you, while learning about a chemist who might try to kill you too. Once the Zakharovs realize you're the reason their last attempt failed. His voice softened. Katerina, you think you're safe if you walk away? The moment that man in the alley saw your face, you became a target. The only question is whether you're a passive target waiting to be eliminated or an active player who might survive. I stood, walking to the windows. Below, the city continued its indifferent dance. Somewhere down there, my mother was watching old Soviet films and forgetting she had a daughter. Somewhere else, men were planning murders with chemistry sets and patience. What if I can't do it? I asked quietly. What if I'm not good at lying or spying or whatever this requires? Then you tell me what you learn, and I handle the rest. But Katerina, I turned to face him. You recognized micro-encapsulated poison in wine with a glance. You speak Russian like a native. You understand pharmaceutical synthesis well enough to discuss it with a trained chemist. You're not just a waitress. You never were. The compliment shouldn't have mattered, but it did. If I do this, I said slowly, and if we identify what Demidov is planning, what happens to him? That depends on what he's planning. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give. Nikolai's gaze was steady. I'm trying to leave behind the man who solved problems with violence. But I won't let people kill me or those I'm protecting because I've developed a conscience. If Demidov is actively working to murder me, I'll stop him by whatever means necessary. And if he's just a scared old man being forced to make poison, then I'll find a way to get him out from under the Zakharov's control. He paused. But you'll need to determine which he is. That's the real question you'll be answering at those Tuesday literature discussions. I thought about the weight of that wine bottle, about my mother's window that would finally open, about 18 months of drowning in place while my dreams evaporated, about the fact that for the first time in years, someone was asking me to use my brain instead of just my ability to carry plates and smile through harassment. Tuesday, I said. The group meets at 7 to 8:30. Your mother will be moved to her new suite tomorrow. You'll have natural reason to visit, to get her settled. Stay for the literature group. See if Demidov attends. If he does, introduce yourself naturally. You're Elena's daughter. You love Russian literature. You're thrilled to find other people who appreciate Bulgakov. And if he doesn't trust me, then you talk about the Master and Margarita for 90 minutes and learn nothing. But Katerina? Nikolai smiled. Slightly. I suspect he will trust you. Lonely people recognize each other. Nikolai insisted I stay the night in a guest room with locks on the inside of the door and a bathroom stocked with unopened toiletries that suggested he kept the space prepared for exactly this kind of emergency. I didn't sleep. Instead, I lay in 1,000 thread count sheets and stared at the ceiling, replaying the evening in my mind. The opalescent sheen in the wine. The man in the alley with his hand inside his jacket. The casual way Nikolai had reorganized my entire life with a phone call and a promise. At 6 a.m., someone knocked softly. Duh, I called out in Russian, forgetting myself. Breakfast in 20 minutes. A woman's voice answered in the same language. Mr. Volkov requests your presence. The dining room table was set for 2-0 ostentatious, just coffee and blini with sour cream and smoked salmon. Nikolai was already there, looking like he'd slept 8 hours despite having survived. An assassination attempt. He'd changed into casual clothes that probably still cost more than my monthly wages. Dark jeans, a gray sweater that fit like it had been made for him. You didn't sleep, he observed. How can you tell? You have your mother's eyes, very expressive when you're exhausted. He poured coffee into a cup that looked like actual bone china. Eat. Then we'll get you prepared. Prepared for what? Tuesday isn't until prepared for everything. He slid a folder across the table. Your cover story, such as it is. Kate Voloshina, currently between jobs after La Mer Rouge unexpectedly closed due to health code violations. I've arranged that, by the way. Real story will be in the news by noon. You're spending more time with your mother during this transition. You're looking for pharmaceutical work, but the market is difficult for people without completed degrees. I opened the folder. Inside was a perfectly crafted legend employment history, references that I would check out, even a LinkedIn profile that looked like I'd maintained it for years. This is incredibly detailed. I have good people. And Katerina? Everything in there is designed to make you sympathetic to Demidov. You're someone who left a dream behind for family. Someone who understands sacrifice and loyalty. Someone who might understand why a chemist would work for terrible people if the alternative was worse. You think he's being coerced. I think anyone who makes poisons in Brighton Beach while living. Above a bookstore is either a true believer or a prisoner in an invisible cage. Nikolai sipped his coffee. You're going to find out which. After breakfast, he walked me through the basics. Nothing dramatic, just how to recognize surveillance, how to report information securely, what to do if I felt threatened. He gave me a phone, new, encrypted, with only 2 numbers programmed in. He gave me a credit card, for anything you need, no limits, no questions. He gave me the address of an apartment in Brooklyn Heights that was apparently mine now, closer to your mother, safer than your studio, already furnished. This is too much, I protested. This is adequate. He handed me the keys. Your old apartment will be cleared out by tomorrow. Anything you want saved will be in the new place. Anything you don't need will be donated or disposed of as you specify. My head spun. I don't even know what I need. Then I'll have someone move everything and you can sort it later. He checked his watch. A car will take you to the new apartment. Get settled. Visit your mother this afternoon. Tomorrow is Sunday rest. Tuesday you attend the literature group. Wednesday you tell me what you learned. And in between, you live your life, see your mother, explore your new neighborhood, read Bulgakov so you're prepared to discuss him intelligently. His smile was slight. You're not a prisoner, Katerina. You're someone whose circumstances have changed, dramatically, and who needs time to adjust. At the door, I paused. Why are you being so kind? This is more than debt repayment. More than ensuring I'm cooperative. Nikolai was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable. My brother Alexei was kind. Genuinely kind. in a way I never managed to be. He volunteered at hospitals, taught English to immigrant children, believed people were fundamentally good despite all evidence to the contrary. His jaw tightened. The people I helped killed him. Now I'm trying to determine if I'm capable of being the person he thought I was. He paused. You're helping me find out. The car, a discreet black sedan, not the Mercedes, took me to an address in Brooklyn Heights that turned out to be a pre-war building with actual character. My apartment was on the 4th floor, with exposed brick and windows that overlooked tree-lined streets instead of traffic. Everything from my studio was there, but arranged better than I'd ever managed. My books were on real shelves instead of in stacks. My clothes were in an actual closet. Even the photos of my parents, the ones I'd kept in a shoebox, were now in frames on the mantel. On the kitchen counter, I found a note in precise handwriting. The locks have been changed. Only you have keys. The building super is aware of your situation and will not allow anyone access without your explicit permission. My number is programmed as N in your phone. Use it if you need anything. NV. I spent Saturday moving through the space like a ghost, unable to believe any of this was real. That morning I'd been a waitress worried about tips. Now I had an apartment I couldn't afford, a mother in a care facility I could never have provided, and a role in something I didn't fully understand. Sunday, I visited my mother in her new suite. She cried when she saw the window. Then she cried when she saw the private bathroom. Then she cried when the nurse brought her medication and called her Mrs. Voloshina with genuine respect, instead of the tired patients the overworked staff at her old facility had managed. Katyusha, she whispered, holding my hand. What did you do? I got lucky, Mama. That's all. She studied my face with the clarity she sometimes still possessed. You look different, scared and excited at the same time. Like when you got into Colombia. I'm fine. Just adjusting to changes. Good changes? I thought about poison in wine bottles and encrypted phones, and a man who owned 12 floors but ate blini for breakfast, like he remembered being human. I don't know yet, I admitted. But they're big changes. She patted my hand. Big changes are how we grow, Ptichka, even when they're frightening. Monday, I did nothing except read. The Master and Margarita, cover to cover, making notes about themes and symbolism like I was preparing for a literature exam instead of a covert operation. Bulgakov's story of the devil visiting Soviet Moscow suddenly felt uncomfortably relevant, a world where nothing was as it seemed, where people wore masks and power moved through invisible channels, where choosing sides meant choosing which version of damnation you could live with. Tuesday arrived gray and cold, with the kind of November wind that cut through even my new coat. Cashmere appeared in my closet Monday morning with a note. You'll need this. NV. I arrived at Brighton Beach Memory Care at 6:45 p. The literature discussion group met in the common room, a surprisingly pleasant space with comfortable chairs arranged in a circle, and bookshelves donated by residents' families. About 12 people were already there when I arrived, ranging from elderly residents to middle-aged children visiting parents. And in the corner, sitting alone with a worn copy of The Master and Margarita, was Dr. Yuri Demidov. He looked exactly like his photos, gray hair, stooped posture, sad eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a cardigan that had been expensive once but was now fraying at the cuffs. His hands trembled slightly as he turned pages. My mother waved at me from across the room. Katyusha, come, you should join us. We're discussing Bulgakov tonight. I crossed the room, very aware of Demidov's peripheral attention tracking my movement, sat in the empty chair beside my mother, pulled out my own copy of the book. The discussion leader, a volunteer named Irina, who spoke Russian with a Georgian accent, welcomed me warmly. Elena's daughter, we're so glad you could join us. Have you read Bulgakov? Many times, I said in Russian, though I find something new each time. The layers of meaning, the way he critiques society while telling what appears to be a supernatural farce, it's masterful. Across the circle, Demidov's head lifted slightly. His eyes met mine for just a moment before returning to his book. But I saw it. Recognition. Interest. The lonely acknowledgement of someone who'd finally found another person who understood. The game had begun. The literature group discussion flowed around me like a river I was only half swimming in. Irina guided the conversation through the Master and Margarita's themes: love, artistic integrity, the nature of evil, while I watched Dr. Yuri Demidov from the corner of my eye. He didn't speak for the first 30 minutes, just listened, occasionally making notes in the margins of his book with a pencil stub. But when Irina asked about Pontius Pilate's cowardice, his hand raised tentatively. Pilate isn't a coward, Demidov said quietly in Russian. His voice was cultured, professorial. He's a pragmatist trapped in an impossible situation. He knows Yeshua is innocent, but acknowledging that truth would cost him everything, his position, his safety, possibly his life. So he chooses survival over integrity. And you sympathize with that choice? Irina asked gently. I understand it. Demidov's sad eyes grew distant. We all make compromises to survive. The question Bulgakov poses is whether those compromises eventually consume us entirely, or whether redemption remains possible even for those who've betrayed their principles. The room fell silent. Even the residents with dementia seemed to sense the weight in his words. Redemption is always possible, my mother said suddenly, her voice clear and certain. That's why Margarita saves the master. Love redeems. Sacrifice redeems. Even Pilate finds peace eventually. Doesn't he? He's freed from his punishment because the master forgives him. Demidov looked at her, something shifting in his expression. You believe that? That we can be forgiven for choices we made to survive? I believe we can forgive ourselves, my mother replied. That's harder, but more important. After the discussion ended, people clustered in small groups. My mother was tired, I could see it in the way she leaned on her walker. I was helping her back to her suite when Demidov appeared beside us. Your mother is very wise, he said in Russian. She has her moments of clarity, I replied carefully. Between them, it's harder. But tonight was a good night. My own mother had dementia, Demidov said quietly. At the end, she couldn't remember my name, but she remembered Pushkin. Could recite entire poems from memory even when she didn't know where she was. I'm sorry for your loss. It was a long time ago. He paused, then extended his hand. Yuri Demidov, I haven't seen you at these discussions before. Katerina Voloshina. Kate. I shook his hand dry, trembling, the hand of someone who worked with chemicals and lived with fear. I just moved closer to my mother's facility. Thought I'd finally join the group she's been telling me about. You know Bulgakov well. I studied literature at NYU before switching to pharmacy. The lie came easily because it was mostly truth. I had taken literature courses, just at Columbia, and just as electives. I never finished either degree. Life got in the way. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of a kindred spirit who'd abandoned dreams for necessity. Pharmacy, he said carefully. That's a challenging field. It was. I liked the chemistry, the precision of it. Understanding how molecules interact, how small changes in structure create completely different effects. I smiled slightly. My professors said I had talent for pharmaceutical chemistry, but talent doesn't pay for memory care. We'd reached my mother's suite. She was already drifting, exhausted from the stimulation. I helped her into bed, kissed her forehead, whispered goodnight in Russian. When I emerged, Demidov was waiting in the hallway. I often walk after the discussions, he said. Helps me process the ideas. Would you, if you're not busy, would you care to join me? Just around the block. It's safer than walking alone. Every instinct screamed that this was too fast, too easy. But I saw the loneliness in his eyes, the desperate hope of someone who'd finally found another person who spoke his language literally and figuratively. I'd like that, I said. We walked in silence for the first block. Brighton Beach at night was a strange mix of cultures. Russian delis next to pizza shops, Orthodox Jews heading home from evening prayers, teenagers speaking a hybrid of Russian and English that belonged to neither country entirely. You said you studied pharmaceutical chemistry, Demidov finally said. What drew you to it? Honestly, the idea that I could help people, that understanding molecular interactions could mean the difference between life and death. I pulled my coat tighter against the wind. My father died when I was 19. Pharmaceutical error, they gave him the wrong medication after surgery. His system went into shock. By the time they realized the mistake, it was too late. This was true. All of it. And I saw Demidov's expression shift sympathy, but also something else. Guilt, perhaps. I'm sorry, he said, quietly. Medical errors are more common than people realize. The system is imperfect. People are imperfect. Are you in medicine? A long pause. I was. I have a doctorate in medicinal chemistry from Moscow State University. I worked in pharmaceutical research for many years. Worked? Past tense? I made choices that took me away from legitimate research. His voice was barely audible. Sometimes survival requires us to use our skills in ways we never intended. We'd circled back toward the memory care facility. In the yellow glow of streetlights, Demidov looked older than his 60-some years, worn down by choices he couldn't unmake. Next Tuesday, he said as we reached the entrance. If you come again, perhaps we could discuss crime and punishment. It's what the group is reading next. I'd like that. There's a cafe near here. Katyusha's ironic. Given your name. A slight smile. They serve real Russian tea, not the American version. If you ever wanted to discuss literature or chemistry outside the group setting, I'm there most afternoons. Reading, working on projects. What kind of projects? His smile faded. The kind that pay the bills. Nothing interesting. He left before I could respond, disappearing into the Brooklyn night like a ghost who'd briefly become solid. I waited until I was in the car Nikolai had sent. Yes, he'd somehow known when to have it arrive before calling the encrypted phone. He answered on the first ring. How did it go? He invited me for tea. A pause. That was faster than I expected. What did you learn? I told him everything: the discussion, the walk, the careful way Demidov had probed about my pharmaceutical background, the guilt that radiated from him like heat from a furnace. He's not a true believer, I concluded. He's a prisoner who's convinced himself his cage is necessary. That matches what my intelligence suggested, Nikolai said. The question is whether he's redeemable or too compromised. You'll need more meetings to determine that. He mentioned a cafe, Katyusha's. He's there most afternoons. I know it. I'll have someone verify his patterns. Make sure it's safe for you to meet him there. A pause. Katerina, you did well tonight, but be careful. Demidov may be a prisoner, but he's still dangerous. The Zakharovs wouldn't protect him if he wasn't valuable. I know. Do you? Nikolai's voice softened. Because you sound sympathetic. That's good for building rapport, but dangerous if it clouds your judgment. My judgment is clear, I said, perhaps too sharply. He's a lonely old man who made terrible choices and can't find his way back. That doesn't mean I trust him. It means I understand him. Good. Understanding without trust is the right balance. He paused. Come to my office tomorrow evening. 6 o'clock. There are things you need to see before you go deeper with Demidov. What things? Evidence that sympathy without caution gets people killed. Nikolai's office in the financial district building was different in daylight, less fortress, more legitimate workspace. The monitors still showed security feeds, but now they were joined by Bloomberg terminals and spreadsheets that tracked actual cargo shipments. He was on the phone when I arrived, speaking rapid Russian about container schedules and customs documentation. He gestured for me to sit, finished the call, then pulled up a file on his central monitor. Before you meet Demidov again, he said without preamble, you need to understand exactly what he's capable of. The screen filled with crime scene photos. I'd thought I was prepared. I'd seen my father in the hospital after the medication error. I'd watched my mother slowly disappear into dementia's fog. I'd worked in a pharmacy where we'd discussed toxicology and fatal drug interactions clinically, academically. Nothing prepared me for the photos of what Demidov's poisons had done. Viktor Sokolov, Nikolai said quietly, businessman from Moscow who tried to cut the Zakharovs out of a shipping deal. Found dead in his hotel room at the plaza 6 months ago. Appeared to be a heart attack. Autopsy revealed traces of a modified cardiac glycoside similar to digoxin, but with altered molecular structure that made it nearly undetectable. The photo showed a man in expensive pajamas, face frozen in agony. Irina Volkov, no relation to me, Nikolai continued. Accountant who'd been skimming from Zakharov businesses, died in her sleep. Appeared to be an aneurysm. Actual cause was a neurotoxin derived from cone snail venom, modified to cross the blood-brain barrier more efficiently. More photos, more bodies, more of Demidov's brilliant, terrible work. In the past 18 months, we can definitively attribute 7 deaths to compounds Demidov created. Probably more that we haven't identified because the toxicology was too novel. Nikolai turned away from the screen. The wine he prepared for me would have. I'd been the 8th. I felt sick. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to understand what you're dealing with. Demidov may be a prisoner, but he's a prisoner who's killed 7 people that we know of, with chemicals he designed specifically to evade detection. Nikolai's voice hardened. Your sympathy is natural. Your pharmaceutical background makes you appreciate his skill, but don't mistake understanding for safety. He's brilliant, desperate, and controlled by people who've proven they'll kill anyone who threatens their interests, including me, especially you, once they realize you're the reason their last assassination attempt failed. He pulled up another file. Which is why we need to move faster than I'd like. The Zakharovs know someone interfered. They're investigating. My sources say they've already identified you from security footage near the restaurant. My blood went cold. How long do I have? Days. Maybe. They're being cautious because they don't know your connection to me yet, but they will. He stood, pacing. We need Demidov to tell us what he's working on next, and who else is on the target list. Then we need to extract him or eliminate him before the Zakharovs can use his work again. Extract him? You think you can just convince him to defect? I think a man who quotes Bulgakov about redemption and feels guilty enough to tremble when holding a teacup might be convinced that there's a better option than continuing to poison people for the Bratva. Nikolai stopped at the windows. But I need you to make that determination. Is he redeemable or is he too far gone? And if he's too far gone, then I'll handle it, and you'll be extracted to somewhere safe until this is over. The clinical way he said handle it made the meaning clear. I thought about Demidov's sad eyes, his trembling hands, the way he'd spoken about his mother remembering Pushkin. I need more time with him, I said. One conversation isn't enough to know if it can be saved. You have until Friday, Saturday at the latest. Nikolai turned back to me. After that, the Zakharovs will either move against you or realize you're connected to me. Either way, we're out of time. That's 4 days. Then you'll need to move faster than casual cafe meetings. You'll need to give him a reason to trust you completely. He pulled out a folder. Which is why I've prepared this. Inside was documentation that made my stomach drop: forged arrest records, evidence of pharmaceutical theft, a fabricated backstory that painted me as someone who'd been caught selling prescription medications illegally. You want me to pretend I'm a criminal. I want you to be someone Demidov can relate to. Someone who understands making terrible choices for survival. Nikolai sat across from me. Tomorrow, you'll go to Katyusha's cafe. You'll seem distressed. When Demidov asks what's wrong, and he will, because lonely people are drawn to others in pain, you'll tell him that you've been contacted by police about irregularities from your time as a pharmacy tech. Nothing serious yet, just questions, but you're scared. And this makes him trust me. This makes you vulnerable. Someone with secrets. Someone who might understand why he does what he does. Nikolai leaned forward. Predators hunt the vulnerable, but so do people looking for kindred spirits. We need to determine which category Demidov falls into. I studied the forged documents. They were perfect, too perfect. Court records, pharmacy board complaints, even news articles about prescription drug diversion that mentioned my name. How did you create all this so quickly? I have very good people. And Katerina? He met my eyes. These documents are now in real databases. If anyone checks, and Demidov will have the Zakharovs check, they'll find corroboration. You're not pretending to be compromised. As far as any official record shows, you are. The implications sank in slowly. You've made me actually look guilty of crimes I didn't commit. I've given you a cover identity that will save your life. His voice softened. And yes, I've compromised you in ways that tie you to me. If you go to authorities now, these records exist. You'd have to prove they're false, which would require explaining why they were created, which would expose everything else. You've trapped me. I've protected you the only way I know how, by making you too valuable and too compromised to be a simple loose end the Zakharovs can eliminate. He stood. I'm not the good man I'm trying to become, Katerina. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm the man who's keeping you alive right now, and that requires methods that aren't clean. I wanted to be angry. Should have been angry. But I looked at those crime scene photos still visible on the monitor and understood the calculation he'd made. Better to be trapped by Nikolai than dead by Demidov's poisons. What happens when this is over? I asked quietly. When we've dealt with Demidov and the Zakharovs, do these records disappear? They disappear, you get a clean identity, and you go finish pharmacy school somewhere far from here. That was our agreement. He paused. Unless you choose differently. Choose what? To stay. To work with me as I try to legitimize my operations. You have skills I need: pharmaceutical knowledge, chemistry background, fluent Russian, and apparently a gift for making dangerous people trust you. He smiled slightly. I could use someone like that. Someone who's compromised enough to be loyal but principled enough to tell me when I'm becoming the monster again. That's not what I want. I know. You want to finish your degree, help people, live quietly with your mother nearby. He nodded. And you'll get that. But the offer stands, if you change your mind. Katyusha's cafe was a time capsule of Soviet nostalgia. Mismatched furniture, old propaganda posters hung ironically, a samovar that actually worked. It smelled like strong tea, piroshki, and the particular sadness that clings to immigrant spaces built from memory rather than reality. Demidov sat in the back corner, as Nikolai's surveillance had predicted. He had papers spread across the table, handwritten formulas, chemical structures, calculations that I recognized from my pharmaceutical coursework. He saw me enter, and his face brightened briefly before concern replaced it. I must have looked as distressed as I'd practiced. It wasn't hard, since I actually was distressed about the forged criminal record Nikolai had created. Katerina. Demidov half rose from his seat. Are you all right? I'm fine. I glanced around the nearly empty cafe. Could I sit with you? I need to be around people right now. Of course, of course. He quickly gathered his papers into a folder, but not before I glimpsed molecular structures for alkaloid compounds. Please. I ordered tea from the proprietor, a woman in her 60s who seemed to know Demidov well and sat across from him. You look troubled, he said gently. I am. I wrapped my hands around the tea glass, grateful for its warmth. I got a call today, from someone at the State Pharmacy Board. They're investigating irregularities from my time working at Riverside Pharmacy. Demidov's expression shifted to concern. What kind of irregularities? They think I was involved in prescription diversion, controlled substances that went missing during my shifts. I looked down at my tea. I wasn't. I swear I wasn't. But I was the tech who had access to the dispensing system, and now they're looking at me, and I don't know what to do. This was all true, in the fake records Nikolai had created, but delivered with genuine fear about what those records meant for me. Have they filed charges? Demidov asked carefully. Not yet. They're still investigating, but if they do, my voice cracked authentically. I'll never work in pharmacy again. My mother's care, everything I've been trying to build, it'll all disappear. And for something I didn't even do. Demidov was quiet for a long moment, his sad eyes studying me with new intensity. Sometimes the system punishes the innocent, he finally said. Sometimes being in the wrong place with the wrong skills is enough to make you guilty in their eyes. Is that what happened to you? I shouldn't have asked. Too direct, too soon. But he didn't shut down. Instead, he seemed almost relieved to have the subject broached. Yes, he said simply. I was a researcher, legitimate pharmaceutical development. I published papers, taught at university, believed I was contributing to human knowledge. He stirred his tea absently. Then my wife became ill. Cancer. Expensive cancer. The kind that bankrupts families even with insurance. I'm sorry. I was approached by people who knew my skills could be valuable in other ways. They offered money, a lot of money, for my expertise in modifying drug compounds. Just minor consultations, they said, helping them understand pharmaceutical interactions for their businesses. But it wasn't minor consultations. No, his voice dropped. Have not foreman. By the time I understood what they really wanted, my wife's treatments were being paid for. We had money for experimental therapies, clinical trials in Switzerland. Hope. He looked up at me. How do you choose between your principles and your wife's life? You choose your wife, I said quietly. Anyone would. That's what I told myself. His hands trembled as he lifted his tea. She died anyway, 6 months after I started working for them. All that money, all those compromises, and she died anyway. And by then, I knew too much, had done too much. They owned me. The confession hung between us like smoke. I saw tears gathering in his eyes, quickly blinked away. The Zakharovs, I said softly. His head snapped up, fear replacing sadness. How do you know that name? I hear things. I worked in restaurants. Rich people talk like service staff don't exist. I leaned forward. Yuri, I'm not investigating you. I'm sitting in a cafe trying not to have a panic attack about my own life falling apart. But if we're both trapped by people we can't escape from, maybe we can at least be honest with each other. He studied me for a long time. I could see him calculating, weighing risks, deciding whether I was genuine or a threat. They'll destroy you if they think you're a risk, he finally said. The pharmacy board investigation, if the Zakharovs or people like them think you know things, have access to systems. They'll either try to use you or eliminate you. There's no middle ground. What would they use me for? The same thing they use me for. Knowledge. Access. The ability to create problems that look like accidents. He closed his eyes. You still have time to run, Katerina. Change your name. Move somewhere far from here. Start over. You haven't crossed the line yet. What line? The one where you actively choose to become what they want you to be rather than letting circumstances force you. He opened his eyes. I crossed it 5 years ago. Every day since, I've told myself I'm surviving. But survival at the cost of your soul isn't really survival. It's just a slower death. I reached across the table, covered his trembling hand with mine. What if there was a way out? For both of us? There isn't. What if there was? I pressed. What if someone with resources, someone who wanted to hurt the Zakharovs, offered protection in exchange for information? Would you take it? Demidov pulled his hand back like I'd burned him. You're not just a pharmacy tech, are you? I'm exactly what I said I am. But I'm also someone who stumbled into something bigger. I made a decision, a gamble that could get me killed or break this open. 2 nights ago, I was working at a restaurant. I noticed something wrong with a bottle of wine being served to a customer. The customer noticed me noticing. He asked questions. He offered protection. Now I'm sitting in a cafe wondering if I've been saved or if I've just traded one trap for another. Who? Demidov's voice was barely a whisper. Does it matter? Someone who scares the Zakharovs. Someone who wants what you know. Volkov. Not a question. Nikolai Volkov. He's the only one who'd have reason to intercept their operations. Demidov stood abruptly. You need to leave. Now. If they see us together, if they think I'm talking to someone connected to him, Yuri, wait. You don't understand. The poison I made for Volkov was supposed to be untraceable, uninterruptible. If it failed, they'll assume someone with pharmaceutical knowledge interfered. They'll investigate everyone who had access, everyone who could have recognized it. His face was pale. If they connect you to me, they'll think I betrayed them. They'll kill us both. Then help me stop them first. You can't stop the wrecked Zakharovs. No one can. Volkov can. He has resources, connections, the will to move against them. I stood, matching his intensity. But he needs to know what they're planning next. What you're working on now. Who else is on their list? Demidov looked at me like I was proposing suicide. If I tell you, I'm dead. If you don't, you're dead anyway. Just slower. I softened my voice. You quoted Bulgakov about redemption. About Pilate finding peace through forgiveness. What if this is your chance? What if helping stop them is how you finally forgive yourself? You're asking me to betray people who'll torture me to death if they find out. I'm asking you to stop being complicit in murder. I pulled out my encrypted phone. I showed him the number saved under N. 1 call. You tell me what they're planning. I relay it to Volkov. He moves against them before they can act. You get extraction and protection. A new life somewhere they can't find you. There's nowhere they can't find me. There is if you disappear completely. New identity, new country, enough money to live quietly. I paused. Volkov offered me the same deal. That's the only reason I'm here instead of running. He actually delivers on his promises. Demidov sat back down slowly, his entire body shaking. What exactly does he want to know? Everything. What you're working on now. Who the targets are. Where you're keeping your research. How much the Zakharovs know about their operation being compromised. He was quiet for so long I thought I'd lost him. Then, they have me working on 3 compounds right now. The first is another cardiac poison more refined than what I made for Volkov, harder to detect. It's for a federal prosecutor named Jennifer Martinez who's investigating their money laundering operations. They want her dead before she can testify next month. My blood ran cold. A federal prosecutor. This was bigger than mob rivalry. The second is a neurotoxin derived from batrachotoxin poison, dart frog compound, modified for aerosol delivery. They're planning to use it at a restaurant owned by the Taglia family. Spray it through the ventilation system during a private party. Everyone inside dies of what looks like simultaneous strokes. When? This Saturday. The Taglia patriarch's birthday celebration. 3 days. We had 3 days. And the third? Demidov's hands shook so badly he could barely lift his tea glass. The third is for me. They had me created a month ago. A compound I'm supposed to take if I'm ever compromised. Fast-acting, painless. They call it retirement insurance. They gave you your own suicide poison. They gave me a choice that isn't a choice. Take it myself if things go wrong, or they'll kill me slowly as an example to their other specialists. He laughed bitterly. That's how they ensure loyalty. They make death the merciful option. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling Volkov. Right now. You're going with me when I leave this cafe, and you're not going back to your apartment above the bookstore. My research notes everything they need to continue the work without me. It's all at the apartment. If I don't go back, they'll know something's wrong. Then we get the research first, then we run. Can you access it quickly? 5 minutes, maybe less. It's in a false panel behind my bookshelf. I dialed Nikolai. He answered on the first ring. It's done, I said in English. He's flipping. But we need immediate extraction, and we need to raid his apartment in the next hour before the Zakharovs realize he's gone. He has 3 active operations: Federal Prosecutor Martinez, Taglia family restaurant attack, and his own suicide failsafe. Jesus Christ. Nikolai's voice was sharp. Where are you? Katyusha's Cafe, Brighton Beach. Stay there. I'm sending a team now. 10 minutes. Don't let him leave your sight. A pause. Katerina, you did extremely well, but the next hour is going to be dangerous. The moment he doesn't check, and in with his handlers, they'll know something's wrong. How long do we have? He checks in daily at 8 p.m. It's 6:45 now. 75 minutes before they start looking for him. I relayed this to Demidov. His face went even paler. We'll never make it. The extraction, the apartment, getting out before 8, it's impossible. Then we make it possible, I said. You want redemption? This is it. Right now. This moment. Everything that comes after depends on the next 75 minutes. Demidov looked at me, at his trembling hands, at the folder of formulas he'd been working on. More poisons, more deaths, more compromises of a soul that might still be savable. All right, he whispered. God help us both, but all right. Nikolai's team arrived in unmarked vans 8 minutes, not 10, which suggested they'd already been positioned nearby. 4 men in tactical gear but without identifying patches. Professional, efficient, focused. The team leader was a woman named Svetlana, maybe, 35, with a Slavic accent and the kind of economy of movement that spoke of military training. She assessed Demidov with one glance. He looks like he's going to pass out, she said to me in Russian. He probably is, but he's cooperative. Good. Makes this easier. To Demidov. You have 70 minutes before your check-in time. We go to your apartment, retrieve your research materials, then extract to a secure location. You follow orders exactly. No hesitation, no questions. Understood? Demidov nodded mutely. We moved to the vans. I ended up in the same vehicle as Nikolai, who'd apparently driven himself rather than waiting at his office. He wore all black, no suit this time, and I realized I'd never seen him in operational mode. You shouldn't be here, I said. If this goes wrong, it won't. His confidence was absolute. We've been planning for this contingency since you first made contact with Demidov. The apartment is mapped, exits secured, backup teams positioned. We'll be in and out in 4 minutes. And the research? What happens to all those formulas for murder? We document everything, then we burn it. Every note, every compound, every synthesis pathway. Demidov remembers it all in his head, but without written records, it becomes much harder to replicate. He glanced at me. You're shaking. I'm terrified. Good. Terror keeps you sharp. He handed me something small and metallic, a panic button. If anything goes wrong, press this. Help comes immediately. The apartment building was exactly what you'd expect above a Russian bookstore in Brighton Beach. Narrow stairs, peeling paint, doors that had been repaired more times than replaced. Demidov's apartment was on the 3rd floor, rear unit. Svetlana's team moved with practiced precision. 2 men secured the stairwell. 1 covered the fire escape. The rest of us, Nikolai, Svetlana, Myself, Demidov, and 2 others entered the apartment. It was barely larger than my old studio. Books, everywhere. A kitchenette that hadn't been used for cooking in years. A makeshift laboratory in the corner that made my pharmacy tech training scream about safety violations. "The research is behind here," Demidov said, moving to a bookshelf packed with Russian literature. He pressed something, a hidden catch, and a panel swung open, revealing a safe. His hands shook so badly he could barely work the combination. Nikolai gently moved him aside. "The numbers." Demidov rattled them off. Nikolai opened the safe in seconds. Inside were notebooks, at least a dozen, filled with Demidov's precise handwriting. Chemical formulas, synthesis pathways, test results. An encyclopedia of death disguised as research notes. "This is everything?" Nikolai asked. "Everything they know about. There's more my personal insurance. Digital files encrypted on a thumb drive hidden in..." The window exploded inward. Not broke. Exploded. Safety glass designed to shatter into small pieces rather than shards, sprayed across the room. Through the opening came something small and cylindrical, trailing smoke. Flashbang! Svetlana grabbed Demidov and threw him to the floor. I was already moving, pharmacy training kicking in, recognizing the smoke's chemical composition. Not a flashbang. Worse. Aerosolized compound. I screamed. "Don't breathe." Nikolai's hand caught my arm, yanked me toward him. His other hand was already pulling something from his jacket filter masks, the kind used for chemical exposure. He shoved one over my face, another over his own, was reaching for Demidov when the smoke hit. I saw Svetlana collapse, her eyes rolling back. The 2 men who'd entered with us dropped like puppets with cut strings. Demidov was gasping, clawing at his throat. Only Nikolai and I remained standing, protected by masks he'd carried as contingency. The research. Nikolai grabbed the notebooks from the safe, shoved them into a bag. "Move." But Demidov was seizing now, foam at his lips. The compound worked faster than I'd thought possible. Neurotoxin, probably one of his own designs, used against him by people who'd decided he was now a liability. "We can't leave him." I dropped beside Demidov, checking vitals. Pulse thready, breathing shallow. "He needs a hospital, now. Atropine, benzodiazepines. He's dead, Katerina." Nikolai's voice was flat. "That compound, whatever it is, works too fast. By the time we get him to a hospital, he'll be brain dead." No, we can." But I could see it in Demidov's eyes. The light fading. The person behind them disappearing into chemical-induced oblivion. "I'm sorry," I whispered in Russian. "I'm so sorry." His hand found mine, squeezed weakly. His lips moved, forming words no sound could carry. "Forgive me." Then he was gone. Nikolai pulled me up. "Extraction. Now. They know we're here. More will be coming." He was right. I could hear footsteps pounding up the stairs, shouts in Russian. We went out the fire. Escape. Nikolai first, then me, moving down rusty metal that groaned under our weight. The bag of research notebooks swung from his shoulder. Behind us, I heard gunfire. Svetlana's backup team engaging whoever had launched the assault on the apartment. We hit the alley running. The van was where we'd left it, engine already running. Nikolai threw me inside, climbed in after, and we were moving before the door closed. "Svetlana?" I gasped. Lost. Nikolai's jaw was tight. She knew the risks. They killed him. They killed Demidov with his own poison. They killed a liability who was talking to the wrong people. That's how this world works, Katerina. That's why I'm trying to leave it. He pulled off his mask, helped me remove mine. "Are you hurt?" "No, just, I couldn't finish. My hands were shaking too badly." Nikolai pulled me against his chest, his hand gentle on my hair. "You did everything right. He chose to help. He chose redemption. That's what got him killed, not you." But I'd seen Demidov's eyes as the poison took him, seen the relief mixed with the terror. He'd finally made a choice that mattered, and it had cost him everything. "The research?" I said, pulling back. "Please tell me we got enough to stop the attacks." Nikolai opened the bag, rifled through notebooks. "Federal prosecutor, Taglia restaurant, his suicide failsafe, it's all here. Formulas, target information, timelines." He looked up. "We can stop this. But we have to move fast." Nikolai's safe house was in Queens, a brownstone that looked abandoned from outside, but was equipped like a military command center inside. Maps, computers, weapons. I tried not to look at too closely. He spread Demidov's notebooks across a table and started photographing pages with professional speed. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Documenting evidence. These notebooks prove the Zakharovs ordered hits on a federal prosecutor and a rival family. That's enough to bring down their entire operation if we get this to the right people." "The FBI?" "Eventually. First, I need to neutralize the immediate threats. The prosecutor Martinez, she's in danger tonight. The compound Demidov prepared is already with the asset assigned to deliver it. Can you warn her?" "I can do better than warn her. I can eliminate the asset and provide evidence that implicates the Zakharovs directly." He made a call, spoke in rapid Russian about targets and timelines and extraction protocols. I sank into a chair, exhaustion and adrenaline crash hitting simultaneously. My hands were still shaking. Nikolai finished his call and moved to a cabinet, returning with a bottle of vodka and 2 glasses. "Drink," he said, pouring. "It'll help with the shock." I drank. The burn was clarifying. "Svetlana had a daughter," he said quietly, 8 years old. "Her name's Anna. She's with Svetlana's sister right now. Doesn't know yet that her mother isn't coming home." He drank his own vodka in 1 swallow. "I'll make sure Anna's taken care of. Education, trust fund, everything she needs. But it doesn't change the fact that she's going to grow up without a mother because I asked Svetlana to help protect you. I'm sorry. Don't be. Svetlana chose this life. Knew the risks. Believed in what we were trying to do, taking down operations that poison society from the inside." He refilled his glass but didn't drink yet. "She was trying to leave too. 1 more operation," she kept saying. "1 more, then she'd retire, spend time with Anna, be a normal mother. That's not on me. Or you. That's on the people who threw poison gas through a window. Intellectually, I know that. Emotionally?" He finally drank. "I'll add her to the list of people I couldn't save." We sat in silence for a moment. Then my encrypted phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. "We know who you are, Katerina Volkov. We know where your mother is. Stop interfering or she dies screaming." I showed Nikolai. His expression went colder than I'd ever seen it. "They're bluffing. Your mother has security, the best I could provide. But they know about her. They know she's the leverage." "Yes." He took my phone, typed something, sent it. "Which is why she's being moved right now. Doctor. Chen's research program includes a facility upstate. Your mother will be there within the hour, protected by people the Zakharovs can't reach." "What did you just text them?" "That Katerina Volkov died in the explosion at Demidov's apartment. That they're threatening a ghost." He handed back the phone. "It buys us time. Maybe 6 hours before they verify it's not true, but it's enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to finish this. Tonight." He pulled up maps on his computer. "The Taglia restaurant attack is scheduled for Saturday. We have time to prevent that. I'll warn them, provide security, let the Zakharov's asset walk into a trap. But the prosecutor, her security detail changes at midnight. That's when they'll move. We have 5 hours. What do you need from me?" "Nothing. You've done more than enough. I'm having you taken to the upstate facility with your mother. You'll be safe there while I clean up this mess." "No. Katerina, no." I stood. "Demidov died trying to stop this. Svetlana died protecting me. I'm not hiding while other people risk everything to fix a problem I helped expose. You're not trained for this. You're a civilian who stumbled into something way over your head. I'm a civilian who recognized poison in wine and convinced a man to betray the mafia. I'm useful, Nikolai. Don't sideline me now." He studied me for a long moment. "You understand what I'm asking if you stay? This isn't reconnaissance anymore. This is direct action against people who'll kill you without hesitation." "I understand. And you're still willing?" I thought about Demidov's last words. "Forgive me." Thought about redemption and second chances, and the fact that sometimes the only way forward was through the darkness into BD2 provided, whatever light might exist on the other side. Yes, federal prosecutor Jennifer Martinez lived in a secure building in Manhattan Doorman. Cameras, the kind of security that made normal people feel safe and made people in Nikolai's world laugh. "The asset will be someone with legitimate access," Nikolai explained as we approached in an unmarked car. "Delivery person, building maintenance, someone who won't trigger immediate suspicion." "How do you know?" "Because that's how I'd do it. The poison is designed to work on contact absorbed through skin, probably in something innocuous like hand lotion or lipstick. Martinez touches it. Hours later, she has what appears to be a stroke. Clean, untraceable, perfect. Except we have Demidov's notes telling us exactly what to look for. Exactly. He pulled up surveillance footage on a tablet. My people have been monitoring all deliveries to Martinez's building since 6 p.m. 3 possibles. Flour delivery at 7:15, food delivery at 8:30, dry, cleaning delivery at 9:45. Which one? That's what we need to determine. You have pharmaceutical training, you can recognize chemical compounds by smell, consistency, presentation. We intercept each delivery, you assess, we either clear it or neutralize it. And the asset? Gets arrested by actual FBI, provided with evidence that they were carrying poison meant for a federal prosecutor. The Zakharovs lose their asset and gain federal attention they can't deflect. It sounded simple. It wouldn't be. The flower delivery came first. A young woman, maybe 25, carrying an expensive arrangement of roses and lilies. Nikolai's people intercepted her in the lobby, not violently, just a routine security check performed by men who looked enough like federal agents to be credible. I examined the flowers, checked the water, the stems, even the decorative paper wrapped around the vase. Nothing unusual. No chemical smell beyond floral scent and fertilizer. Clear, I told Nikolai. The delivery woman continued to Martinez's apartment. One down. The food delivery came at 8:30. A man in his 40s carrying bags from an upscale Thai restaurant. Same interception, same security check. I went through the food containers. Pad Thai, spring rolls, coconut soup. Everything looked and smelled exactly as it should. Clear. 2 down, which left the dry cleaning, except the dry cleaning didn't arrive at 9:45, or 10, or 10:15. They're delaying, Nikolai said, checking his watch. Waiting for something, or they know we're here. Could they have a different vector? Something we're not seeing? Possible. But Demidov's notes specifically mentioned contact poison delivered tonight. If not through these deliveries, then his phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression darkening. They've changed the plan, he said, ending the call. Martinez just received a call from her daughter's school. Emergency. She's leaving the building. It's a trap. Yes, her daughter is fine, I had someone check. But Martinez doesn't know that. She's getting into a car right now. We moved. Nikolai's driver pulled around to the building's rear exit where Martinez's personal car was kept. We arrived just as she emerged from the elevator, a woman in her 50s, professional attire, panic evident in her body language. Prosecutor Martinez, Nikolai called out. FBI. Stop. She froze. We weren't FBI, but we looked official enough, serious men in dark suits, moving with authority. Who are you? I need to get to my daughter. Your daughter is fine. This is a trap. The call was fake. Nikolai pulled out his tablet, showed her surveillance footage of her daughter at school, safe and attended. You were being lured out of the building so they could isolate you. Martinez looked at the footage, at us, calculating whether to trust strangers who claimed to be saving her life. That's when I saw him, the dry cleaning delivery man, emerging from a service van parked 20 feet away. He wasn't carrying cleaning. He was carrying something else. Small, metallic, gun-shaped. Gun! I screamed. Everything happened too fast to process linearly. Nikolai was moving, pushing Martinez behind a concrete pillar. His own weapon appeared. I hadn't even known he was armed. The dry cleaning man fired not bullets, but a spray of something that hissed as it dispersed. The aerosolized poison from Demidov's apartment. They were using it here. Hold your breath, I shouted, but the man was already collapsing, not from his own poison, from Nikolai's bullet, precisely placed center mass. More men emerged from the van. These ones had actual guns. Nikolai returned fire with clinical precision. 1 dropped. 2. The third dove for cover behind the van. Get her inside, Nikolai shouted to me. Now! I grabbed Martinez's arm and ran, pulling her back toward the building entrance. Behind us, gunfire echoed off concrete walls. We made it inside. The doorman was already on the phone with actual police, real sirens in the distance, growing closer. Martinez was shaking, hyperventilating. I recognized the signs of shock. Breathe with me, I said in the calm voice I'd learned for pharmacy emergencies. In for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Your daughter is safe. You're safe. Just breathe. She followed my instructions, her breathing gradually slowing. "Who are you people?" she gasped. "We're the people who got evidence that the Zakharov family tried to have you killed." Nikolai appeared in the doorway, somehow looking composed despite having just been in a firefight. "Evidence we're turning over to your office, along with documentation of their money laundering operations and pharmaceutical smuggling." He handed her a USB drive. "Everything's there. Demidov's research notes, target lists, synthesis pathways for the poisons they've been using. Enough to bring down their entire operation and everyone connected to it." Martinez stared at the drive like it might explode. "Demidov is dead. We heard about the explosion in Brighton Beach. He died giving us this information," Nikolai said quietly. "Make sure it counts." Police were flooding the garage now. Nikolai and I needed to leave before questions became unavoidable. "Wait," Martinez called as we turned to go. "Who do I tell them helped me?" "You tell them you got lucky," Nikolai said. "Sometimes that's all any of us gets. The Taglia restaurant attack never happened." Nikolai warned them. They evacuated the building, and when the Zakharov asset showed up to deploy Demidov's aerosolized neurotoxin, he found a restaurant full of federal agents waiting instead. Within 48 hours, 16 Zakharov family members and associates were arrested. The evidence from Demidov's notebooks was ironclad. Prosecutors were already talking about RICO charges that would effectively dismantle the organization. I spent those 48 hours at the upstate facility with my mother, who didn't understand why we'd suddenly moved but seemed happy with the new surroundings. The compound was beautiful, more resort than safe house, with grounds she could walk and staff who treated her with dignity. On the third day, Nikolai arrived. He looked exhausted, the kind of tiredness that comes from sustained crisis rather than just lack of sleep. But when he saw me, something in his expression eased. "It's over," he said. "The Zakharovs are done. Their operations are being seized, their associates are flipping for deals, and the evidence from Demidov is enough to keep the survivors in prison for decades." "And the people who died?" "Svetlana, Demidov? Remembered, honored. Svetlana's daughter Anna will never want for anything. I've made sure of that." He paused. "Demidov's work will be destroyed, every formula, every synthesis pathway. His knowledge dies with him." We walked in the facility's gardens, my mother visible through the windows of her room, reading to herself. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you get what I promised. Clean identity, the false criminal records erased, enough money to finish pharmacy school anywhere in the country. Your mother stays here or moves with you, your choice. All expenses covered for as long as she needs care. And you?" I continue dismantling my less legitimate operations. The Zakharov situation gave me leverage with other families. I'm the man who brought them down, which means I'm too dangerous to move against. It buys me time to transition everything to legal businesses. "So you get your redemption." He smiled slightly. "I get to try for it. Whether I succeed is another question." We walked in silence for a moment. Then, "The offer still stands," he said. "If you want to stay, work with me. Use your skills for something that matters." I'd been thinking about this for 3 days. About Demidov's last words, about Svetlana's daughter, about the fact that I'd discovered I was good at something I'd never imagined doing. "I want to finish pharmacy school," I said slowly, "but maybe not to work in a pharmacy. Maybe to understand compounds and toxicology well enough to prevent what happened with Demidov from happening again. To identify poisons before they're used, to help people like Martinez stay safe. You want to be a pharmaceutical consultant. For people like me who are trying to stay alive in a dangerous world. For people who need someone who can recognize poison in a wine bottle." I looked at him. I could do that from anywhere. Take classes remotely, work cases as they come, visit my mother regularly, live something close to a normal life, but with purpose beyond just surviving. That would make you very valuable, and very difficult to protect. I don't need protection. I need partnership. Someone who treats me as an equal, not an asset to be managed. Nikolai stopped walking, turned to face me fully. "Is that what you want? Partnership with someone like me?" I thought about the weight of the Petrus bottle in my hands that night at La Mer Rouge, about the choice to speak Russian instead of staying silent, about every decision since that had led to this moment. "Yes," I said. "If you're willing to be partners with someone who'll call you out when you're being a monster instead of a man." His laugh was genuine, warm. "I think I need exactly that." He extended his hand. I took it. And this time, the handshake felt different. Not a transaction, but a promise. Not salvation, but the possibility of it. Not an ending, but a beginning. The Columbia University Pharmacy program accepted my application for re-enrollment with full credit for previous coursework. I'd finish my degree in 18 months, but this time I knew exactly what I'd do with it. My mother had good days and bad days. On good days, she remembered I was her daughter, and we discussed Pushkin in her sun-filled room at the upstate facility. On bad days, she thought I was her sister, or her mother, or a kind stranger who liked to visit. But she was safe, cared for, and occasionally happy. That was enough. Nikolai's legitimate businesses were thriving. The import-export operations ran cleanly now, focused on actual luxury goods with proper tariffs and documentation. He'd divested from most of the gray market operations and was using his knowledge of how criminal enterprises worked to consult with law enforcement on disrupting them. He was trying. Some days he succeeded in being the man his brother would have been proud of. Other days, he was still the man who could order violence with a phone call if necessary. But he was trying. And me? I was Katerina Voloshyna again, not Kate. I attended classes 3 days a week, visited my mother 2 days, and spent the remaining time consulting on cases that required someone who could recognize poison before it killed. Twice I'd identified compounds designed to mimic natural deaths. Once I'd prevented an assassination attempt on a judge. I was building a reputation in a very small, very discreet world, someone who understood both chemistry and the darker applications people found for it. I was useful. I mattered. And for the first time since my father died, I felt like I was living rather than just surviving. On a Tuesday evening, I attended the Russian literature discussion group at the upstate facility. My mother was having a good day. She recognized me and was excited to discuss crime and punishment with the group. Afterward, as people dispersed, I stood in the spot where I'd first talked to Yuri Demidov, where he'd confessed to crimes that had destroyed his soul and asked if redemption was possible. My phone buzzed. Text from Nikolai. New case. Possible ricin derivative. Can you look at it tomorrow? I replied, yes, send the files. Then I added, dinner Friday? That new Georgian place you mentioned? It's a date, not romance. We weren't that. But partnership, friendship, two people who'd stumbled into each other's and lives by accident and chose to stay. I looked through the window at my mother, watching her laugh at something another resident said. Thought about Demidov's last words, forgive me, and realized that forgiveness wasn't something you received. It was something you earned through choices made after the worst of yourself had been revealed. I was earning mine by preventing deaths instead of just serving drinks. Nikolai was earning his by building something legitimate from criminal foundations. My mother had earned hers long ago, sacrificing everything for a daughter who'd finally found a way to honor that sacrifice. We were all broken people in a broken world, trying to piece together something that resembled redemption. Some days we succeeded. That was enough. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel.